All right, so today we're going to do two-step equations. So we've done one-step equations, like where it says x plus 3. But here we have like 3x plus 2, so there's two parts to it. So two-step equations. So today we'll be able to find the unknown of an equation, and we'll be able to check my answer of an equation. So we're going to list the steps you would take to undo the following actions. So if you put on your sock, and then you put on your shoe. To undo that, the first thing you would have to do, you can't take off your sock, okay, because you have a shoe on top. That wouldn't work. So first you'd have to take off your shoe. And then after you take off your shoe, then you could take off your sock. So we're undoing those actions, but you couldn't take off your shoe, or take off your sock with your shoe on. You'd have to take off the shoe first. Okay? Number 1 says set down your notebook and set on top your AP Bio textbook. So if I set down my notebook and I put the textbook on top, I can't really take that notebook off because the AP Bio book is really, really big. So we're going to take off that textbook first. So the first thing to undo is going to be to pick up your AP Bio book. Bio stands for biology. So after we pick that up, then we can pick up the notebook. Okay, so notice on each of these, when we do these two steps, to undo them, we have to start with that second step and then go back to the first step. So we have to undo the second step, go back to the first. So if I multiply x by 9 and then add 5, to undo it, I have to start with that last step. To undo adding 5, I'd have to start by adding a negative 5. And then to undo multiplying by x by 9, I'd have to divide x by 9. Because the opposite of multiplying is dividing. Okay, so here we go with the problems. We're going to start with number 1. So we're going to solve this. So I'm going to write my equation over here. 3x plus 2 equals 8. I'm going to draw a line down the equal sign. That way I keep everything balanced. Remember, when I do something on one side, I have to do it on the other. Okay, so steps. So my first step, I'm going to think x is with the 3. So those they're kind of like best friends. So we want to keep them together. So I'm going to get rid of this adding 2. So to undo adding 2, we're going to add negative 2 to both sides. Okay, so I'm going to put it right underneath this 2 because that's what I'm trying to get rid of. So I'm going to say plus negative 2, and if I do it on one side, I do it on the other. Okay, on the left side, that gets rid of it. 2 plus negative 2 is 0. So now I'm just left with 3x. So I'm going to write 3x equals 8 plus negative 2. If I need to use a calculator, I can, but I know they're different. So if they're different, I'm going to subtract. 8 minus 2 is 6, and I have more positives. So now we have to undo the multiplying by 3. So we're going to divide by 3 on both sides. Okay, remember when we divide, it's really important to use that fraction line. So I'm going to divide by 3. If I do that on one side, I do it on the other. Divide by 3. Remember, this 3 divided by 3 really makes 1, and 1 times x is just x. I get x equals 6 divided by 3 is 2. So now I'm going to check my answer. So to check, I'm going to do 3 times 2 plus 2. Does that equal 8? That's the question. So I would have to do multiplying first. So 3 times 2 is 6, plus 2, does that equal 8? 6 plus 2 is indeed 8. So 8 does equal 8. It worked. So that's a check. That's a check mark. Okay, number 2, we're going to solve this equation. So we have 18 equals 4x minus 2. So I'm going to draw my line down the equal sign. So right now with the x is a 4. So I'm going to keep that 4 because they're together. That's like the first step. I'm going to get rid of this minus 2. So I'm going to undo subtracting 2. So to undo subtracting 2, we add 2 to both sides. So I'm going to put it right underneath the minus 2, that's what I'm trying to get rid of. If I do it on one side, I have to do it on the other side, so plus 2. So 18 plus 2 is 20, equals 4x. So now to get the x by itself, right now we're multiplying. So to undo multiplying by 4, oh, I forgot the O, undo multiplying by 4, we need to divide by 4 on both sides. Okay, but to divide, we use that fraction line. So I'm going to say divide by 4, divide by 4. So 20 divided by 4 is 5. So 5 equals x. And it's okay to use a calculator if you need to. Okay, now we're going to do our check. So to do our check, we're going to have 18 equals 4 times our x is 5, minus 2. So 4 times 5 is 20. So 20 minus 2. And we're putting a question mark here. We're saying, does it work? Okay, so 20 minus 2 is 18. So 18 does equal 18. It worked. Check. Okay, next page. Got 2 more examples. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to change the subtracting to add the opposite. Okay, so I'm going to change the subtracting. When I write it here, I'm going to say 15. Instead of minus, I'm going to write plus. And the opposite of a positive 2 is a negative 2. So negative 2x equals 7. Okay, so with the x is the negative 2. They're hanging out. Okay, they're friends. So to undo the hanging, we want to keep them together, so we're going to get rid of this adding 15. So we have to undo adding 15. So to undo adding a positive 15, we're going to add a negative 15 to both sides. Okay, so I draw my line down the equal sign. I'm going to put it right under the 15 because that's what I'm trying to get rid of. So I'm going to say plus negative 15. If I do it on one side, I do it on the other, so plus negative 15. Okay, that gets rid of the 15 and 15. That makes 0. So I'm left with negative 2x equals, now I have a positive and a negative, so I would subtract. 15 minus 7 is 8. And I have more negative, so it should be negative 8. If you wanted to use a calculator to check that, that's totally fine. So 7 plus negative 15. And that is negative 8, so that did work. Okay. Now we have to undo multiplying by negative 2. So to undo multiplying by negative 2, we're going to divide negative 2 on both sides. So I'm going to divide by negative 2, divide by negative 2. So on the left side, that leaves me with just x. And then 8 divided by 2 is 4. And a negative divided by a negative is a positive. So now I'm going to check my answer. So I'm saying 15 minus 2 times my x is 4, equals 7. So that's the question. So I'd multiply first. So I have 15 minus 2 times 4 is 8, equals 7. That's the question. 15 minus 8 is 7. So 7 does equal 7. Okay, number 4. Last example. So I'm going to rewrite my problem over here. Negative 34 equals negative 25 plus 3x. Draw a line down the equal sign. Okay, so first thing, the x is hanging out with the 3, so we're going to keep those together. We're going to get rid of this adding negative 25. So to undo adding a negative 25, we add a positive 25 to both sides. So I'm going to put it right underneath the negative 25. So plus 25, plus 25. Do it on both sides. So these are different, so I would subtract. So negative 34 minus 25 would be 9. I have more negatives. So negative 9 equals, and I'm left with just the 3x. So now I'm doing 3 times x. So we need to undo the multiplying by 3. So we're going to divide by 3 on both sides. So divide by 3, divide by 3. So over here I'm left with x equals negative 9 divided by 3. So 9 divided by 3 is 3, and a negative divided by a positive is a negative. Okay, last step is to check. So I'm going to have negative 34 equals negative 25 plus 3 times negative 3. So negative 34 equals negative 24. And multiply those two. 3 times 3 is 9, and a positive times a negative is a negative 9. So now when I add them, they're the same. So I'd add 24 plus 9, so 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Did that not work? Oh, this was a 25. Oh, man. There we go, checking my answer. All right, so now that's negative 34. I panicked there. So that worked. Okay, to solve an equation, we undo operations. We want to keep the number that's hanging out with the x, like here we wanted to keep the 3, as long as we can. After we solve the equation, we need to check our solution. So plug it back in and check. Okay, and that is it.